Okay, let's. We apologize for the technical difficulties, but hello and welcome to the Google Hangout as we announce the 2014-15 Hofstra Women's Basketball Non-Conference Schedule. I'm Brian Bull, the Sports Information Director for the Women's Basketball Program, and I'm joined today by the head coach of the Hofstra Women's Basketball Program, Krista Kilburn-Stabeski, and the station manager for WRHU in Dan Savarino. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
Absolutely, it's great to be here.
Well, Coach, an 11-game schedule highlights the non-conference portion with 5 home games, and we'll break them down one by one. But first, Coach, without giving away the specifics, what were your general thoughts on putting together this schedule and just getting ready to compete in the CAA for the 2014-15 season?
Well, if anyone looks back at our previous years, we've had strong, highly competitive non-conference schedule. So we certainly wanted to keep it in that light. So we feel like we have a good blend of top teams in each conference. People have won their championships, and we did a good job of kind of, how we start our season off and how we end the non-conference going into the conference. So, the balancing act of scheduling is always tricky, but I really do feel like this is a better year for our schedule. We have had some hard hitters the last few years, and now I think it's a little bit more balanced, but highly, highly competitive.
And Coach, on the docket, there are at minimum three NCAA tournament qualifiers from 2014. How happy are you with the strength of the schedule?
Yeah, you certainly, as I mentioned before, a schedule that can challenge your team early, kind of let us know who and what we all are about right from the beginning. Give us a chance to just really compete. We're always obviously trying to build where we need to win these games to obviously get a chance to be considered come the end of the year with our RPI and the strength of schedule. So we certainly do these things for a reason, but to be the best, you have to beat the best. So, getting the wins does what matters when it comes down to the NCAA and the reviewing. So, this does put us in a position to have a strong RPI by the end of the season if we handle our conference season.
Dan, you've seen this team over the last few seasons. How good of a test is it for the young players to face so many good teams early on?
Well, we saw it last year when some actually the best games we saw from that freshman class of Loftus, Luciano, and Edifaroca were against some of the better teams in the non-conference and in the conference as well. So I think that just shows you what you have there. And at that point, now they can get ready and make that next jump now as they're sophomores and expected to take on a bigger role in the 2014-2015 season. But you challenge them early, and I think that's the right thing you end up going in there because it just makes it a lot easier for them when they get to conference play.
All right, well, the moment everyone's been waiting for, let's get down to it. The season opener will come against Central Connecticut State on November 8th at noon, and the second game will happen almost a week later versus Fairfield on November 14th at 6 p.m. Coach, how important is it to start off strong with the opening 2 games coming at the Mac Sports Complex in your own building?
I mean, obviously, it is a long journey, but it's extremely important, and especially in the young minds. Kids put a lot of pressure on themselves, to get off on the right start. I think these games put us in a great position, but also a very challenging position. And I don't think that we're going to need any motivation, even though that thing doesn't say Connecticut, it says Central Connecticut. I don't think we're going to need a lot of extra motivation with the squad because we suffered a tough loss at the buzzer. And everybody recalls that pretty strongly. So we certainly have a lot of vindication to do for ourselves and for our conference to show, because they're a very well coached team. They're going to come in here ready, but we certainly need to take care of business at our home and in our first game.
And Dan, just talk about having those first 2 games at home. Just how important is it for Hofstra to get off to that good start with in front of their home fans?
Well, even better, that first game, also Jacksonville's going to be there for the men's team as well, so they'll both be playing on Friday night, so it's going to be a basketball doubleheader with the MAC, so you're expecting to have a big crowd there. The atmosphere is going to be electric, and I'm really looking forward to that, just alone to be able to see both of those games. But when you look at just the first 2 games on the schedule, CCSU, obviously, Coach mentions about the buzzer beater. I was on the call for that game. That was a heartbreaking loss for the team, where they end up tying the game late. But Central Connecticut State, they lose some players. They lose their top player in Jess Babe. Fairfield, they lose their top 3 scorers, 3 starters. So these are 2 games that are winnable games to start off the season, possibly 2-0.
Certainly, and we're really excited to have a doubleheader. I don't recall having a home opener doubleheader, definitely not in my career, not sure about the Hofstra career. So, and then Fairfield is obviously a very well-coached team that comes in here with 20 wins, and they qualified for postseason. So we might not have the name game on those first 2 games, but we have a personal name game for our squad, and certainly a great way to start off 2-0.
All right, Coach. Well, the first road game is a big challenge for Hofstra as you travel. It's a not too far of a trip, just going to Fordham on December 21st at 7 p.m. It's a Friday night contest at Rose Hill Gym, and it's against the defending Atlantic 10 champions. Just how excited are you to match up against them for a second straight season?
Well, as just as motivated as we are for Central, that's what's going to happen at Fordham because, I think they walked into our gym. They were very well seasoned. We were still young and rebuilding last year. So we certainly, did a great job, played one of our better games in that game and really took it to them. So, to try to bottle that up and explain, how important it is on the road. I mean, you guys know how difficult road wins are. So to me, that's our first test. It happens to be our first road test, but it happens to be Fordham who's dynamic. They, one of the top teams, obviously, won their conference championship. So, they've lost a few, but I'm sure they're reloading. And, it's a big one. It's a big one because it will be our first road. No game is bigger than the next, but it's going to be quite motivating, and they'll be ready to roll for sure.
Dan, Hofstra defeated Fordham at home last season. How important do you think that game was for the young players like Alo Edifaroca and Crystal Luciano? And what do you what do they need to do to have similar success against the Rams this time around?
Well, the Rams are well coached. Stephanie Gately actually just signed the extension to 2021. So you saw NCAA tournament last year, another tough team on the schedule. But last year's game, that was a close game, and that was a game that you started to see everybody really fill in. That was, the second home game after the loss to BC, after winning at Robert Morris, and it was there, and then you had Fordham. So that was the second win of the season, and it was a good win of the season. Even though the 2 players who scored the most were Anman Yuku and Annie Payton, who are no longer part of this team because they've graduated, still you got to see some freshmen get some light in there. And Crystal Luciano had an alright game as well. She got some experience out there. Alo Edifaroca, she was able to match up with some of their forwards. So even though Fordham is losing 2 of their top players, they're still bringing back a good bunch. And like you said, they're well coached. So this is going to be a good game, local, and you still have some fans go out to Fordham because it's not that far away.
And earlier like that, Dan, is definitely a defensive match, and they're a strong defensive team.
And as we move on, Coach, with Old Dominion out of the conference, it seemed like Norfolk trips were over. But Hofstra will head to Norfolk State on November 23rd. Do you view this game as a character test since it's a long trip, just 2 days after a road night game and a pretty quick turnaround?
Very well stated, Brian. That certainly will be, and it can't be taken lightly. Going down there, my experience with them, even in the past, it's a very loud atmosphere. They have an insane band that plays, and so we're going to have to, certainly, get our teams ready. The good thing is we'll be flying down there, so that'll be nice. So we won't have a little bit of jet lag that way. We'll be able to bounce back. But seriously, it's such an important game for us, and coming off such a start. So again, that's the coach's ability to try to get the players motivated, and hopefully our leadership will help that too, because you can't take games off, you can't take the plays off, certainly can't take games off, because those are things we need, toward the end of the season to build our RPI.
And after that 2-game road swing, Hofstra returns home to host a Thanksgiving tournament at the Max Sports Complex starting on November 28th versus Northern Iowa at 4 p.m. And, Coach, you'll be playing games back-to-back days. What are some of those challenges in having that?
Well, the good thing that we always talk about to our team is, to win the CAA championship, you're going to have to play several games in a row. So that'll be a lot of the verbiage that we're talking about. It's exciting to have new teams that the players won't really have too many opinions about, so we'll be ready. Northern Iowa obviously is very tough, and balancing, you always tell the players one game at a time, and so they really got to focus on the first game, but yet we'll be scurrying around preparing for everything. Our staff will be, getting us ready to turn right around. So all of those kind of variables, but to me, to win a championship, these are the types of tournaments. This helps you get ready. And in 2011, when we won our first one here, that was pretty exciting. And, we don't have anybody from that year, but we have everybody from the years after that, and they have been involved, with what it takes to win. So we're real excited, and certainly hoping that our goal to win our own tournament.
Dan, with this team having so many young players as well, do you like this format, back-to-back games? Kind of gets them ready for what the CAA tournament format is like, where you have to be ready to play multiple games across multiple days to reach your goals. Just talk about how that format can help prepare this team for where they want to go.
Absolutely. I mean, March 12th to the 15th, you want to be at Upper Marlboro at the Showplace Arena to the 15th. And in order to do that, you have to win games back to back to back. So here you have two, games where either that Saturday game, you're either going to have Tulane, which made it to the NIT. They're moving to the American Athletic Conference. Big senior class they have. And then if not, it's Western Kentucky, which won 24 games last year. They have one of the best players in the country in Chastity Gooch. She's an All-American candidate. It's a good and well-coached team that it's gone back to the NCAA tournament with a good history. The Northern Iowa game as well, the first one, which you definitely have, because you don't know obviously who's going to have that Saturday game, that's a team that returns all 5 starters. So that's a tough tournament, no matter what. That's going to be a very tough game, 2 games stretch. So that's going to prepare you for the bigger teams in the CAA tournament when you get into March. And I think it's going to be a good test early, because after that, you only have a couple of more non-conference games before you start getting into that CAA slate.
Well, Dan, you mentioned it. Northern Iowa finished with a winning record last season, and regardless of the outcome, Hofstra will face a postseason qualifier the next day with a game either against Western Kentucky or Tulane, and that'll be November 29th at either 2 p.m. or 4 p.m., depending on the outcomes of the first day. And Western Kentucky won 24 games. They made the NCAA tournament, and Tulane made it to the WNIT. So, Coach, can you just talk about how you'll be facing a quality team no matter what on that second day?
Well, and I'm kind of going back what I said. With our first, victory needs to be over Northern Iowa, and their 18-game winning season of their last 3 seasons, is on a team to certainly take lightly. And like I said before, too, that the players will be motivated. This is a fun opportunity to play different people. We know Tulane qualified for the WNIT. Western Kentucky has a storied history. We obviously played them my first year on our 26-win season and lost to them to go into the quarterfinals of the WNIT. So, again, new coaching staff, but just a storied history. And when you have that type of history and that type of NCAA success, it really stays with your school and your program. So they are a quality opponent. So, a big job of filling people in the stands, getting folks here. It's not names here on the East Coast that people know. So a good job of, getting folks, to come, because it's a very good women's basketball teams coming into our gym.
And, Coach, that Thanksgiving tournament takes us through November. Now, as we enter December, Hofstra will play 4 of its 5 games in the month on the road, and the first of those is, again, not an easy test, as you head to Albany on December 2nd at 7 p.m. And, Coach, your team defeated the Great Danes on New Year's Day last year at home. Albany went on to win the America East. So how excited are you to have a rematch with them at their venue?
Well, really excited. Can I go back and say that I said that I downplayed the schedule a little bit? It's a different type of schedule. That is not an easy one. It's just different names on the papers. But, just extremely talented teams. And again, another one that the motivation behind it is that we definitely stole one from them, because we had lost to Central, and I know their coach were in nightmares, but knowing that we were coming off a loss, and our freshmen played very well. Kelly Loftus had a huge game. It was an exciting game to win. They had their big 6'8", 6'9" New Zealand player. They went on and won their championship. So the America East Player of the Year was the Richards post player that was actually guard like post, and she was amazing, athletic, run the floor, rebounds like crazy. And so we certainly are ready and in playing up there. I've had experience of being up at Albany, and that will be a challenge in itself. So very excited and really looking forward to all these this non-conference slate.
When you have so many new players on the team, as you try and build chemistry, 4 to 5 games this month are on the road. Do you like these road trips early in the season? Does that kind of help the team come together a little bit?
I think it does. I always reflect back to my first year when we had 4 of our first 5 games on the road, and it just really kind of got them the opportunity to build their confidence, not necessarily as scrutinized by the home crowd, and we just really have that good bonding type of experience to spend a lot of one-on-one and talk about how we're responding to each game, and so I do like that. I think it'll, and then it just prepares you. I mean, winning road games, we won 13 that first year. That is very, very difficult, and every year after that, I knew this from the start. So just trying to express to a young team just how much more you have to be focused on the road to take them. And I think we'll have that month to see how we shake that out.
Well, the only thing more difficult, I guess, than playing a defending conference champion on the road is doing it in back-to-back games, and that's going to be the case as Hofstra will head to Robert Morris on a. I'm sorry, Robert Morris will come here to the Max Sports Complex on December 6th at 2 p.m. Last year, Coach, you defeated Robert Morris in the season opener. Just talk about now playing back-to-back conference champions and two pretty good teams, and I guess the challenges with that to keep the team mentally sharp facing these pretty accomplished programs.
Well, and it didn't necessarily, just like any kind of scheduling woes, facilities issues on the other end up at Albany kind of made it have to squeeze like that. We had a different date. So sometimes you just have to kind of bite off what gets thrown at you, and then now we just have to handle it, no excuses. We can't sleep on Robert Morris, and we know that Artemis Spino is gone, but they had several other Greeks that were freshman point guard. I cannot pronounce her last name. I'll leave that to you, Dan.
I believe it's Stamalampru.
Yeah,
that's a little Greek I have in me.
It's a little Greek you got in you. You should have some in there. But, so it just is what it is. It's, again, no one knows the difficulties of scheduling and how this plays out. So, and you got to win games, and you got to win games when it counts in close, time and proximity of each other. So, again, some of that same verbiage and some of that great leadership, and hopefully at that point a lot of success to help continue to build that. And they remember the rise and fall of a little bit of last year, two wins, a loss, 2 wins, a loss, and so we really didn't have, I think, off the top of my head, just later in the season where we had 3 games lost in a row. So we just have to build on that consistency, which is sometimes the maturation process. So, we're so excited and so enthused about this group of young ladies, from the freshmen, the newcomers to the sophomores, all the way up. So, we will be ready, and we will certainly go out there and give our best shot and, work on getting these wins.
Dan, for the returning players, they were obviously instrumental in those wins against Robert Morris and Albany last year. And just how do you envision their role being this year to help guide the younger players through these games?
I know Coach just mentioned it a minute ago. When you look at the Albany game, it was the freshman that really stood out in that game. Kelly Loftus had 14 points. That was a career high for her at that point. Luciano had 13 points, 6 assists. The freshman class accounted for 31 of the 60 points scored against Albany, and that's a really good Albany team. The team that has only lost 2 games at home last year. That's going to be a tough game going up there. A young program, not young program, but younger players who are very good, like Sharisa Richards and Sarah Royals. But Robert Morris, obviously Artemis Spinu, no longer in. That really helps, considering she averaged close to 20 points a game and grabbed almost 15 rebounds. I know you obviously wanted to recruit her to come here to Hofstra, so you remember her, and I remember you and her had a conversation actually after that game during that victory when we were over in Moons Township. But the win against the Colonials last year, you saw Sydney Epps grab 6 rebounds. Even though Anmanyuku went down in the second half, they did most of it actually without their leading scorer and their captain. So Alo had 8 points in the game, her first 8 points and 4 rebounds. You started to see what you're possibly going to get from their class, and something everybody will remember.
And Coach, as we continue to go down the December schedule, December 9th road game at NJIT will start at 5:30 p.m. And how important is it to head into the break for finals with momentum with a win with this game?
Well, certainly, and that last game, as you always know, whether it's this game or it's the game on the 21st, there are a lot of things that are on their mind, and then they've just come off a pretty heavy week. But I know they will recall how poorly we played here last year, so it's kind of a little bit of a reverse. I think we need to kind of go over there and play the way we're capable, and then everything else will take care of business. So I think that's how we're going to focus on this one. No big cheerleading stand on this. It's just that you got to play like the way you're playing, the way Hofstra's on your chest, the kind of program that you are. And then we'll focus on our finals. I mean, they're going to have to really buck down with their finals. Our schedules are very difficult this year, and as they get older, their schedules get difficult. So, the sophomore class and then the junior class are seeing, now how it is. So certainly got to have an opportunity to take care of this, rest their bodies, and do really well in your exams, and then be ready to go after that.
Well, there will be a 12-day break after this game, but then once that break is over, Hofstra will head to Boston College on December 21st, and that's going to be a noon tip. And Dan, what are you looking to see with a nearly 2-week break, as far as using that time to help prepare for the Eagles against a really tough road game against an ACC opponent?
I know sometimes in men's basketball, and the coaches like to see, especially at the higher level guys who can go pro. If you want to go pro, this is the time we get to see you. All you're doing is working out, you're playing ball, no classes. It's just games. And I think it's a very similar thing here, even for this team. Just basketball. It's over. You're relieved. You have that schedule done finally for the freshmen. Your first time actually being able to play and have to go to class and miss class and come back. They finally get that under their belt, so they know what it's like. And now you get to focus on BC. And BC, even though they weren't that good last 12-19, 3-13 in the ACC, still it's an ACC team, and they're losing a couple of their top scorers too, who contributed over 2,000 points in their time with the Eagles. So that's a game where even though they're losing some of their stars, it's still a game that you never know what can end up coming out, and that would be a big victory on the resume, and one of them that I think will give you a big confidence boost right before you head into conference play.
And Coach, you got a good look against BC when they came to the Max Sports Complex last year. What were your impressions of them as a team?
Obviously Eric does a phenomenal job. Very well coached. He had, moving. They have a lot of movement, a lot of motion in their offense, so difficult to guard. And either way, they came in, they played better than we played, and it was we were trying to play catch up the whole time and just really couldn't kind of gather ourselves very well. So. Just playing ACC, the way we laid out the schedule was to try to play, obviously, strong games. You guys, again, know everybody's theory about that last game, so I have a hard time. You want to play a very tough competition so the kids can focus on getting that win, how prestigious that win would be in the ACC. Focus on that, then we get to go home and have fun and celebrate, the holiday. And so I think that was why this game is very significant. And we will be motivated. We will be very, very well challenged and even seasoned by this point. Getting close to finish the first part of what we call our season when we do the non-conference season. So, certainly would be very great to celebrate that as everybody goes home with a victory. And all these games are extremely serious, but you really want to be playing well by this time.
And finally, the Pride will conclude the 2014 calendar year with the December 30th game at Virginia Tech at 7 p.m. And, Coach, you end the season with 2 straight games against ACC teams. How well do you think that will get you ready for the conference portion of the schedule?
Well, again, that's what I was saying. These last 2 games was really set up this way. Again, a lot of really tough ones, obviously from the beginning of non-conference schedule, but then to really kind of have slated 2 teams that can really help you solidify your non-conference finish and just be exposed. By this time we're going to be exposed to all the things that we need to work in the short term and then long term into the CAA. So this was our plan, and so now let's see how we prepare and complete our plan here against a team that we lost in overtime. You guys know. Very well fought game. Had the opportunity, just one defensive stop, a little miscommunication on screen on the closest to their bench on the left side of the floor, and that put us into overtime. And those are just the things that are etched in their mind. They know they can compete. Anma had a phenomenal game. Our freshmen did well, but now I think they know what it feels like to play teams of that caliber.
And Dan, not to put you on the spot, but do you agree with that, ending the calendar year, getting ready for conference play against 2 really good power conference schools?
Well, this is also a time when I forgot to before with Angelique White is now eligible to play because the fall semester is over. So now you have your George Washington transfer, 6'2" forward, somebody who's been practicing with this team for some time, and being able to see her, she's got the stuff and she's going to make a big impact. But she's now here, and now you have 2 ACC teams. You have Virginia Tech, which obviously is on a lot of people's mind. You're playing at the Castle Coliseum, which is a tough building to play in alone. Yeah. I mean, they were 10-6 last year, and that's a team that went 14-16. They were, sub 500, but they're still very good in that, and it's a good atmosphere to play in. They lose some of their starters, so this is games that are winnable, but they're also very difficult games. And when you have these difficult games, it's just going to go right into it. So yes, it could be demoralizing if you end up, possibly getting blown out. I don't expect them to get blown out, but it can be demoralizing. But I think when you go forward with it, I think it's one of those situations where, now we can finally get this thing over with. We might possibly have a pretty good RPI to our standing because we did get some of these big wins towards the end, and I think it would roll right into conference play nicely.
And Coach, we just went through the non-conference schedule, but before we let you go, who are some of the individual players on your team that you would really like to see get off to good starts?
Thanks, Brian. This is great because we had a great summer. Everyone talks about the added time you can have with the summer players for 2 hours a week in summer. And it really does make a difference because you can kind of see the development. You even know what your freshmen can do, what they can't do. So that just kind of brings me to, Asia Jackson, Sid Epps, and obviously DTP, Deanna Thomas Palmer. All three of those guys, we're expecting, different things out of each person. I feel like D is coming back stronger. You mentioned about Sid being able to be that defensive stopper and rebound and just really do these little things that help us be successful. I think she has that within her by far. And then Asia's got to step up for us a lot. She can be a go-to. She can be the one that can put the ball in the hole and make her other teammates better. So you talk about her role. So each one of the roles are different. Some of their expectations, and then you kept talking all along about our freshmen that are sophomores now, and then Jaquel, was not happy. Jaquel King-Gilchrist, she knows she can bring a lot more. She's a transfer from Florida State. She knows about playing, these people that are on our schedule and what it's like to be in an ACC conference. And so I think we're definitely leaning a lot more on her. And then the continuation of consistency, I think that even talking to you today as we were going over each game, you could almost feel the up and down of our season as we were taking each game, wins, 2 wins, So I think that's the message for us is, not, being consistent, in your role and what you bring. And then if the score part isn't, who's going to pick up the scoring in that game, but you can always defend and rebound. And so I think the consistency is what everyone is like chomping at the bit, to be improved on it and to get better. And we have the addition with Darius Fogg. And then we have Sandra is another young lady from ASA, 6'4" post player. And then we have our freshmen. We have a dynamic group of freshmen with Olivia Askin, Aliana Leon from Puerto Rico, who's a teammate of Crystal's, who played in the under 18 in Colorado Springs and averaged 15 points this summer. She did in the August session of the Colorado Springs tournament, and for FIBA. And then you have Stepha Ramos, who is just a dynamic competitor from Pembroke Pines, Florida. So you have these guys, and then Ashanae Durant is going to make a huge splash. The upperclassmen have just been raving about what she brings, her physicality, her defensive end of the floor, what she can bring already as a freshman. So I think everyone feels it, everyone knows, and it's just, holding on to that consistency, not getting too high, not getting too low, keeping your confidence. Exactly what you said, Dan, about, those last 2 games. It can always be like that. You never know where a little bit of that drop of the season's going to be. So hopefully with enough, obviously, experience, verbiage, those kind of things about don't let that be the drop. You're playing these teams to expose where you are, to see what you need to improve on, not to dwell on it, not to be mentally weak about it. So those are the verbiage and the things that we're going to be working on. But on the flip side, we cannot be more happy and excited about the group of young ladies that we have put together here for the Hofstra Pride. And I can't thank everybody over here enough, between my staff and administration, with our practice facility, providing us all the needs, to show these kids what it takes to be great. And now we just got to just put it on the floor and show everybody.
And Dan, before we wrap up, who are some of the players that you personally are looking forward to really stepping up?
Oh, I can't wait to see, really, somebody that I think all of us over here, everybody who's been covering this team for the last, especially last year, we can't wait to see Alo Edifaroka and what she can do and where she can end up taking that next jump, Krista Luciano, another one. You saw the flash, of just she could just trick you with the way she just throw a pass out of nowhere. Sometimes, like you like to say, Coach, making that money pass a little bit too much, but she's just so smart with the ball where she knows where to be. And when she gets that chemistry going, I think it's going to be Arrington. Angelique White is another player I'm really excited to finally see in some game action. We saw a little bit in practice last year, and I was able to go down and watch the team practice and perform shoot-arounds, and you did see some of that. So I think really more that sophomore class is where I'm looking to, but don't forget about the junior class because that is a pretty good junior class that's coming in and expect to take a big role. And Asia Jackson, I think there's going to be some extra pressure on her shoulders to step to that next level, but I think she's ready at this point to take it and move on and be that leader because you don't have any singers on this team.
Well, fans, thank you very much for joining us in the Google Hangout to announce the Hofstra women's basketball non-conference schedule. I'm Brian Bowl, and thank you to head coach Krista Kilburn-Staveski and WRHU station manager Dan Savarino for joining us. Schedule information can be found shortly on GoHofstra.com. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.